The story begins by introducing a famous rapper in France named Aurélien. After finishing his latest concert tour, Aurélien chats with his wife named Nanako. At this moment, Aurélien feels happy because he has managed to realize his dream of becoming a successful rapper. However, as time goes by, Aurélien feels that being a rapper is not as cool as he imagined. To get a quieter life, Aurélien finally moves from Paris to a remote area in Japan. Aurélien also takes Nanako, who is pregnant with their first child. After taking a fairly long journey, Aurélien finally finds his house that he bought from TikTok. Unfortunately, Aurélien just remembers that the house key was left at his old house in Paris. Luckily, Aurélien manages to enter the house by force. Then, while observing his new home, Aurélien experiences an incident that makes him accidentally find a well inside his house. Aurélien then finds that the well is quite deep. Since this incident, Nanako warns Aurélien to always be careful so that her husband does not fall into the well. When the time is right, Aurélien and Nanako start cleaning and arranging the house. Aurélien then follows his desires. Aurélien follows Nanako's wish to undergo martial arts fighting training. Even though Nanako is pregnant, she is still able to dominate the duel. This is actually not surprising because Nanako was once a taekwondo athlete. Meanwhile, Aurélien has not been studying martial arts for long, so he's still classified as an amateur. When Nanako is sleeping, Aurélien accidentally drops his phone into the well. By utilizing a rope, Aurélien can enter the well safely and retrieve his phone. Apparently, the condition of this phone is still normal because it fell in a clay area. After that, Aurélien idly checks the location until he accidentally finds many ancient objects. Because he is curious, Aurélien finally brings all those ancient objects when leaving the well. Aurélien then observes all those objects and becomes even more curious. From here, Aurélien tries to attach the objects that fit onto his limbs. Then, when all those objects are properly attached, all the other ancient objects suddenly get attached to Aurélien's body automatically. Due to the pressure of the armor, Aurélien falls into the well. In the midst of this situation, Aurélien briefly hears mysterious whispers that bring up his bad deeds and personal problems. The next day, Nanako is shocked to find Aurélien trapped inside the well. By utilizing a car and a rope, Nanako begins to struggle to get Aurélien out. Well, from now on, let's just call the armor used by Aurélien by the name Yoroi. As time goes by, Aurélien is very disturbed because Yoroi cannot be removed. So, whether he likes it or not, Aurélien must clean Yoroi while he is bathing. Even when going out of the house, Aurélien has to wear additional clothing to cover Yoroi so that his appearance does not look strange to others. Afterwards, Aurélien takes Nanako to an obstetrician named Fumiko. According to the results of the examination, Nanako's pregnancy is in a normal and healthy condition. Although Aurélien briefly saw something strange while observing the fetus. Aurélien could not prove this because only he could see it. That night, Aurélien and Nanako were forced to wake up from their sleep after being attacked by two evil monsters. For their safety, Aurélien and Nanako were forced to flee from their home. Aurélien then ran to an open area and was forced to leave Nanako behind once his car was blocked by one of the monsters. Then, while Aurélien was overwhelmed facing the monster, Nanako attacked from behind and managed to behead the monster with makeshift tools. Seeing its friend was dead, the other monster with a black body finally fled while threatening Aurélien. After successfully surviving the monster terror, Aurélien intended to report it to the police. However, for Nanako, Aurélien's plan was not the right decision. Instead, Nanako wanted to take Aurélien to a paranormal acquaintance of hers named Akiko, because Nanako believed her husband was being targeted by evil spirits. Trusting Nanako, Aurélien finally went to Akiko's bakery, which also served as her residence. Upon arriving at the destination, Aurélien and Nanako met a shopkeeper named Nobi. Knowing that Akiko knew Nanako, Nobi finally brought them to meet Akiko immediately. From here, it was revealed that Nanako had known Akiko since she was a child living in Japan. On the other hand, Nobi was the person closest to Akiko. Then, while examining Yoroi, Akiko concluded that the armor was related to a Japanese legend involving Shagara. There were also those who said that this legend was also related to Yokai, a term for supernatural monsters, spirits, and demons in Japan. Representing Akiko, Nobi finally told the legend of Shagara. So, during the Edo period, there was a craftsman named Shagara who lived with his wife and child. Due to the war he faced, Shagara had to lose one of his eyes. Since then, Shagara always viewed the world with evil thoughts. Eventually, he became paranoid. Shagara believed his suffering occurred because he had a cursed eye. Then at one point, Shagara prayed in front of a sacred tree and received armor from the gods Izanami and Izanagi. Shagara finally wore the armor with the hope that his curse could be eliminated. However, in reality, Shagara was always attacked by various yokai every night. As a result of this situation, Shagara's wife eventually fled while his child died. Furthermore, Shagara also could not remove the armor that had been attached to his body. In the midst of his desperate condition, Shagara was swarmed by 100 yokai until he was finally thrown into a well and died. After telling this legend, Akiko warned that Aurélien would experience the same suffering as Shagara. Unfortunately, Akiko could not tell them how to remove Yoroi. While it was still daylight, Aurélien and Nanako bought items that could be used as weapons to face the yokai that night. Even though Aurélien had urged her to go to an apartment, Nanako still insisted on staying at the house so she could protect her husband. It turned out that Nanako dared to make this decision because her fighting ability was much higher. Now, Aurélien and Nanako were ready to fight as a team. As night falls, Team Aurélien finally faces a yokai. While Aurélien is overwhelmed, Nanako manages to get rid of the yokai by sending it falling into the well with a powerful kick. Shortly after, Team Aurélien faces another yokai that has a nightclub-themed appearance. In the middle of the fight, Aurélien accidentally finds evidence that the yokai's weakness is water. When Aurélien can't do much, Nanako's kick successfully drops the yokai into a bathtub filled with water. The yokai then vanishes instantly due to the large amount of water. Still on the same night, Aurélien faces a yokai taking the form of a scantily clad woman. When the yokai's temptation leaves Aurélien helpless, Nanako launches an attack that makes the yokai release Aurélien. Soon after, the yokai tries to attack Aurélien in its true form, which has a long neck. Nanako finally manages to exterminate the yokai by cutting its neck. Overall, Nanako is the one who exterminated the 3 yokai that appeared that night. Meanwhile, Aurélien, who was the target of the attacks, could not do much because of his weak fighting skills. The next morning, Nanako uses a cutting machine to get rid of it. Unfortunately, Nanako's efforts end in failure. Because of this, Aurélien must be ready to face the yokai again, considering the armor attracts the arrival of yokai. At night, Aurélien fights a yokai that has 2 faces. In the middle of its attack, this yokai mocks Aurélien's musical style and political views. In the end, Nanako manages to kill the yokai while her husband is cornered. As time goes by, Team Aurélien faces various yokai, some of which they have exterminated before. Well, even though he still struggles, Aurélien can now defeat several yokai on his own because his fighting skills have improved since being routinely trained by Nanako. Then, every time there is an opportunity, Nanako analyzes the characteristics of the yokai that have attacked Aurélien so far. As a result, Nanako believes all those yokai are related to their traits. Therefore, in his mind, Aurélien is presented with something that has very bad power. To search for further clues, Aurélien and Nanako consult with a yokai expert named Kyoto. Answering Aurélien's question, Kyoto admits that the reality of yokai depends on individual belief. Kyoto also emphasizes that sometimes the existence of yokai aims to warn humans of disaster or to teach them to be better people. That night, Aurélien has an argument with Nanako. The cause is that Aurélien is considered to be prioritizing yokai issues to the point that he forgot his original plan to prepare for Nanako's labor. Furthermore, Nanako is also upset because Aurélien kept his life in Japan a secret from everyone he knows in France. After the commotion, Aurélien helps Nanako give birth in the bathroom in a state of panic. Once the baby is successfully born, Aurélien is shocked because the baby's face looks like a yokai. Even Nanako's face turns into a yokai. This yokai finally vanishes after its disguise is discovered by Aurélien. Not long after, Aurélien leaves the house for a moment to calm himself down. Aurélien then follows a mysterious voice leading into the forest until he finally meets a yokai we'll just call Potato Head. Potato Head then guarantees that Aurélien will not be attacked by yokai while being near it because Potato Head's body has a scent that is hated by yokai. After introducing himself, Potato Head revealed that Yoroi actually created yokai by exploiting Aurélien's negative feelings. After that, Potato Head took Aurélien to a tree. It turned out that this was a sacred tree where Shagara obtained the Yoroi from the gods Izanami and Izanagi. Believing in Potato Head's guidance, Aurélien finally prayed in front of the sacred tree so that the Yoroi would be released from his body. At the same time, Aurélien also confessed that she had many friends, but none of them made Aurélien feel happy. Not long after, the tree roots began to entangle Aurélien's body. From there, the tree suddenly grew fruit. Then, as Aurélien was about to lose consciousness, he realized that Potato Head had trapped him. A few seconds later, the black yokai that had appeared since the beginning of the attack came to the location and ate the tree's fruit, until finally the yokai could take on a new form. Over time, Aurélien woke up in his house accompanied by Nanako. Aurélien's friends, Ebel and Scrat, were also present to visit Aurélien. Nanako then told Aurélien that he had been asleep for 10 days. Within that 10-day period, there were no yokai attacks, so it was only natural that Nanako's condition remained safe. Seeing that Aurélien was able to communicate again, Ebel finally revealed a shocking story. Recently, a figure identical in appearance to Aurélien had appeared, calling himself Aurel-sama. The problem was, Aurélien-sama was carrying out acts of violence and destruction in Paris. Aurel-sama also frequently made blunt, controversial statements. Because the public assumed Aurel-sama was Aurélien, Aurel-sama's actions were now destroying Aurélien's reputation. After learning about the chaos in Paris, Aurélien emphasized that he had been framed by Potato Head. In reality, Aurélien-sama was the incarnation of the black yokai that ate the fruit from the sacred tree. It turned out that the fruit was created from Aurélien's negative feelings poured out while he was talking near the tree. Sometime later, Aurélien's team went to Paris to stop the crimes of Aurel-sama and his group. While in the area of her apartment controlled by Aurel-sama, Aurélien managed to defeat Aurélien-sama's subordinates guarding the location. Not to be left behind, Nanako also joined the fight and successfully defeated the enemies. Once there was an opening, Aurélien entered her apartment, which had been taken over by Aurel-sama. Aurélien was then thrown near the tree. Aurélien also discovered several other dimensions related to yokai. Not long after, Aurélien-sama appeared and brought up all of Aurélien's personal problems. So it turned out, Aurélien had moved to Japan and went into hiding to escape the stress caused by various negative comments directed at him. Furthermore, Aurélien also had a poor relationship with each of his family members. After being attacked by a number of yokai, Aurélien was returned to the real world, specifically to his apartment. It turned out that Aurel-sama's group was holding Nanako, Aurélien's family, and people in Aurélien's social circle hostage. They would all be burned alive if Aurélien could not turn the situation around immediately. In the midst of this critical situation, Nanako urged Aurélien to think positively because that was the key to fighting Aurélien-sama. Following Nanako's guidance, Aurélien returned to the other dimension in a prepared state. Aurélien then worked together with Nanako to fight Aurel-sama. There is a possibility that the other dimensional version of Nanako was created from Aurélien's positive thoughts and the Yoroi's special abilities. After successfully launching a heavy attack on Aurel-sama, Aurélien was thrown back to the real world. Upon re-entering the other dimension, Aurélien had to fight Aurel-sama alone. Their fierce duel sometimes entered the real world before returning to the other dimension again. As he began to feel overwhelmed, Aurélien remembered the martial arts lessons from Nanako. From there, Aurélien performed a desperate attack that endangered her own life and Aurel-sama's. This moment was witnessed by the gods Izanami and Izanagi. Feeling that Aurélien had surpassed Shagara's abilities, Izanami and Izanagi were willing to provide assistance. The result was that Aurélien was thrown back to the real world with the Yoroi detached from his body. After that, Aurélien had to fight Aurélien Sama without using the Yoroi. Then, when cornered, Aurélien finally realized that Aurel Sama was the manifestation of all her negative thoughts all this time. Once Aurélien realized this, Aurélien Sama returned to his original form. With all his positive thoughts, Aurélien managed to break Aurel Sama's evil influence until finally the Yokai's body was destroyed by all the Yoroi fragments. When all the Yoroi fragments reunited, Nanako approached Aurélien to report that everyone had survived the terror of Aurel Sama's group. Nanako was relieved that Aurélien also survived despite his injuries. Learning from his experience fighting Yokai, Aurélien could now make peace with his life in Paris, including with his family. More than that, Aurélien was finally able to spend a lot of his time with Nanako. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next epic story. See you in the next video.